What if I told you the next global war might not be fought over oil or over land, but something as tiny and small as your fingernail? A tiny semiconductor chip. A chip that ultimately powers everything that matters, be it defense equipment, the AI revolution, the automobile industry, the AI data centers, everything. Without it, I believe the modern digital civilization would grind to a halt. And that's exactly why countries like United States, India, China, Japan, Korea, they're logged in. They're logged in a silent battle worth trillions of dollars. And this isn't a science fiction. That's actually happening.
Between knowing nothing and knowing everything, there's a zone. That's exactly where we sit. Not experts, just curious about the world. Welcome to the Buffer Zone. I'm your host Shabazz, joined by my co-host Shivam. Together, we'll be hosting you in our 10th episode. Today, we are unpacking the chip war, why semiconductors have become the world's most strategic resource, why nations are racing to control them, and how this invisible battle could decide not only the future of technology, but the global economy and the balance of power itself. So let's get into it. Before we dive into politics, the billion-dollar companies, and the US China rivalry, let's answer one simple question. What exactly is a semiconductor? This is a question that I have asked myself a lot of times. When we were doing the research, I was very excited, and so was Shivam, about this episode because we both had heard this term a lot. But now we were trying to see what it actually is, trying to simplify this for you all so that you also understand what semiconductor is and why the whole world is going crazy after it. So, semiconductor, the name sounds intimidating, right? But the concept really is not. Think about your brain for a second. Right now, billions of neurons are firing electrical signals, helping you think, remember, process, react. It's all happening without you even noticing. Now, imagine building something for the machines. That's a computer chip. And semiconductors are the materials used to build that. Look around you, your phone, your car, your smartwatch, and even your washing machine. Every single one of them has a chip inside. Take the chip out and you don't have a smart device anymore. All you have is an expensive paperweight. So when people call chips the brain of modern devices, that's not an exaggeration at all. It's actually pretty accurate. Just like your brain receives information and tells your body what to do, a chip receives information and tells a machine what to do. Unlock your phone with a Face ID, get directions on Google Maps, or even generate an image using AI. Hell, even guide a missile to a target. All of it chips.
Now, why are they called semiconductors? Semi as in halfway, but halfway between what exactly? Think of electricity as a flowing water through a pipeline. Some materials let it freely flow like an open tap. They are called conductors. Some material block it completely, like a closed valve. We call it insulators. But semiconductors, they are neither. It's a material you can control. You can tell when the electricity can pass through it or stop right there. On, off, on, off. And that's the magic. Your phone isn't smart because of the material that's being used in that, or because of the screen, or because of the metal it is equipped with. But somewhere deep inside it are billions of tiny switches flipping on and off faster than you blink. And together, they are doing something very incredible. They're thinking. So the chips aren't just components. So they're basically the bedrock of the entire digital civilization. These countries and the countries which are fighting and going over war because of chips, they aren't doing it because of its size or because of how great of a engineering marvel it is. They are going after it and they're going war over them because whoever controls the most advanced chips are basically controlling the artificial intelligence revolution that's happening. They are basically controlling the global economy, the digital economy, the automobile industry, the defense industry for the next several decades. Which raises a very, very obvious question, Shabazz. If chips are that important, why can't every country just produce them simply? And that's where the real chip war begins.
To answer that question, Shivam, we need to rewind, as usually we have to in all our episodes. Not centuries, but just a few decades. Making semiconductors is not like making steel or cars. You can't simply build a factory and start producing them. Chip manufacturing is one of the most complex industrial processes ever created. It's very important for all of you to understand that. It requires decades of expertise, incredibly expensive machines, and a global network of specialized suppliers which you can't just buy. And that's exactly how the industry evolved. During the 1990s and 2000s, the world embraced globalization. America designed the chips, different countries supplied the materials and equipment. Manufacturing happened where it was most efficient, and everyone went home happy. Until they didn't. COVID 19 disrupted supply chains, and suddenly a shortage of chips was enough to halt car factories, delay electronics, and shake economies around the world. Then the relationship between USA and China shifted from economic competition to strategic rivalry. And that is exactly when semiconductors stopped being just another product. They became assets, strategic assets. Because whoever controlled these advanced chips gained an edge in the race to master the artificial intelligence, defense, and the technologies that will define the future. The semiconductor was no longer just powering the modern world. It had become the battlefield on which future of the modern world would be decided. And at the very center of the battlefield stood one small island. Any guesses? Taiwan.
Because over time, the world's most advanced chip manufacturing that you've rightly mentioned have become concentrated in one place. A small island just, I think, 180 kilometers away from the mainland China. And that island is Taiwan. And the one company, TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, now makes the world's most advanced chips that practically goes into everything that matters, everything around you, your phones, your machines, your industrial components, the automobile components, everything. So I was wondering, is it correct to say that the entire world is essentially dependent on one company based out of one island? Will it be right to say that? And I believe that won't be an exaggeration. That's exactly the point. So, if that's the case, where does the world stand right now on this topic? But before we get into it, the politics behind it, I believe it's very important for us and for our viewers to understand how this industry actually works because most of the people go wrong here. Take the example of Nvidia. Nvidia being the multinational American company, the most valuable company in the world right now, responsible for the chips, which is basically the base for the AI revolution that is happening. You must think a company of this stature, this importance, might be having n number of factories churning out chips day in, day out, right? But they don't have a single factory. Nvidia just designs the chips. They design the chips and they just simply present those designs to TSMC to make it. So basically, the brilliance is American, the manufacturing is Taiwanese, and the vulnerability is the everyone's problem.
Interesting thing to note, Shivam. While doing research, I found out that even TMC cannot build the world's most advanced chips alone. It is so complicated that for that, it relies on one Dutch company called ASML. Imagine trying to draw an entire city's road network, but every road has to be thinner than a virus. Yes, you heard it correct. Imagine the roads on which you drive your car. Imagine them to be thinner than a virus. That's essentially what ASML machines do. They carve unimaginably tiny circuits onto silicon wafers with incredible precision. And remarkably, there's only one company in the world that can build these machines. Each machine costs well over 200 million and contain hundreds of thousands of components. Without ASML, there would be no cutting edge chip for companies like Apple, Nvidia, as Shivam mentioned, or AMD. That's why the United States also has worked closely with Netherlands to restrict exports of these machines to China. Now, United States has made its position very clear. It does not want China to have access to the most advanced chips. Quite obvious, right? Since 2022, Washington has been aggressively pushing export controls, cutting off Chinese companies from American chip technology and pressuring allies to do the same. And I'll tell you why that's so powerful. If Nvidia cannot sell its chips to China, China cannot just go and build its own Nvidia. I've told you before, it's not that simple, right? Because the design capability took decades to develop. Now, the Taiwan company, TSMC, cannot legally manufacture many cutting-edge chips for Chinese customers that fall under export restrictions applied by US. So even they are handicapped. China also cannot just go on and build its own TSMC either, because the manufacturing capability is just as hard to replicate. The goal isn't just to slow China down, it's to freeze the gap. to make sure that whatever lead America achieves in advanced semiconductors today, China cannot close it tomorrow. But here's the twist that nobody predicted. The export ban did not just slow China down. It may have accidentally pushed China to stop needing American chips at all. In other words, it might have made China Atmanirbhar. It's pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into domestic semiconductor programs. It hasn't caught up yet, but it's trying hard. Taiwan sits at the center of all this uncomfortably. TSMC is so strategically valuable that some analysts have called it a silicon shield. The idea being that Taiwan's importance to global chip supply is itself a form of protection. Nobody can afford to let Taiwan fall into chaos because the entire world's technology supply chain depends on that small island. Japan and South Korea quietly but firmly aligning with the American position. Both have deep chip industries of their own. Samsung, SK Hynix, Tokyo Electron, and both understand that their futures are tied to the outcome of this contest. Europe is scrambling. The EU has launched its own chip act as well, trying to bring advanced manufacturing back to the continent after decades of outsourcing. And then there's India. Where does India actually fit into all of this?
I believe the answer is somewhere between an outsider and an emerging contender. For decades, India just largely witnessed this game of semiconductor revolution from outside happening somewhere. The design coming from America, the manufacturing going to East Asia, and mostly the skilled engineers being supplied from us. Now that is beginning to change. Going to just read through the next part because I want to make sure that I just capture all the facts accurate. So as where is the India's bet and what all initiatives they have taken. So the government has significantly, Shabazz, expanded the Indian semiconductor mission, committing well over 1.27 lakh crores to build a domestic semiconductor ecosystem. India is betting across the entire supply chain. American companies like Micron and AMD are investing. Tata is building fabrication and packaging facilities. Foreign partners are bringing technology, while India provides talent and long term investment. HCL and Taiwan's Foxconn are building an outsourced semiconductor assembly and test facility near Jewar in Uttar Pradesh. The new phase isn't just about building chip factories. It also focuses on developing semiconductor chemicals, specialty gases, research equipment, the talents, because no country can build a world-class chip industry with fabs alone.
But here's the reality. Building a semiconductor industry isn't like opening a new automobile factory, as we have already discussed before. It takes decades of expertise, thousands of specialized suppliers and technologies that only a handful of countries currently possess. India still has a long way to go before it can match Taiwan, South Korea, or even China in advanced chip manufacturing. But hey, then again, neither of those countries started at the top. India has set itself an ambitious goal of meeting roughly 70 to 75% of its domestic semiconductor demand by 2029 and emerging as one of the world's leading semiconductor hubs by 2035. That's a very ambitious goal. Will it succeed? Nobody knows. But every country that leads the world today was once a country trying to catch up. The question is whether can India become the next one? Finally, I'd just like to say, to conclude, the next superpower won't just be the country with the biggest army. It may be the country that builds the world's smallest chips. Amateurs seek the sun and get eaten. Real power lies in the shadows. This is the Buffer Zone. We'll see you next week.